Kawasaki Z7 Hybrid and Ninja 7 Hybrid, now we present both of them here. We have already talked about this new Kawasaki technology in a dedicated video that you can find on our channel, where Stefano Cordara from Kawasaki, Italy, introduced us to the Ninja 7 Hybrid. There's some technology to discover here, and as I mentioned earlier, we will let one of you test the motorcycle. Many of you sent us presentation videos or wrote to the email experience@redline.it, but out of all of them, only one was selected. Some interesting facts. Those who wrote in and sent videos already own a hybrid car, so there was a lot of curiosity about how this technology could be applied to motorcycles. That said, the motorcycle, as we already explained in that video, is a hybrid motorcycle, a PHEV, so a full hybrid. It doesn't need a plug, it doesn't need to be recharged, the battery recharges itself while riding. It has a 451 cubic centimeters engine, a system power of 69 horsepower. We also weighed it, and for the Ninja 7 Hybrid, it is 231 kilograms with a full tank of gas. There was a bit of a, let's say, public outcry about the weight. That said, I would like to point out that there are many motorcycles, some of which are the best-selling bikes in Italy, that with about 60-70 horsepower have an even higher weight than this one. So I would say that weight is not the real issue with this technology. As you know, there is no clutch, there is no gear lever, you change gears with the buttons, but the gearbox that is there is the one from the 451 Kawasaki engine, so it is a real mechanical gearbox, and it is therefore servo-assisted. Now for this episode of Red 2 Ride, let's meet Fabio, who will be riding the Z7 Hybrid with me. I saw Red Levipic's stories, and I'm curious to try it. I have a BMW 1200 GS, but I also have an electric scooter, so I'm curious to understand how a hybrid solution works. Even though my vehicles are very different, the appeal of electric is the speed, immediacy, and simplicity. It's something I find very interesting, and it will probably be the future of motorcycles, so we are happy to try this first hybrid motorcycle. Name, Fabio. Last name, Di Santo. How old are you? 51. How many motorcycles have you owned? 7. Last motorcycles owned, BMW 1200 GS and an electric scooter. Why do you want to try the new Ninja and Z Hybrid? Well, since I own both an internal combustion motorcycle and an electric one, I want to see what the mix is like. Plus, I think the future development is inevitably heading in this direction, so I was curious to understand how much of it is motorcycle and how much is electric. Here we are, Fabio Di Santo. First of all, Fabio, thank you for sending us your vertical video as requested to participate in this Red 2 Ride. In the presentation, we saw you had 7 motorcycles, and the last one is a BMW 1200 GS. And maybe everyone, slowly. But you also have an electric scooter, so we thought you were the right profile to mix the two things, right? That is, here there is a combustion engine and an electric motor working together. I'm asking you a question because you are one of the many engineers who wrote to us. Why do you think that is? So who is curious about this motorcycle? Yes, but the technology is also intriguing because it seems to be the first on the market. I have to say that it's clear the GS, the internal combustion engine, gives satisfaction with its vibrations, but I find myself using the electric scooter much more often. That's the truth. I live in the city, so speed, quickness, and the fact that it's more agile and also electric, in the end, I find myself using it very often, while I use the big motorcycle for trips outside the city. Okay, so my next question is, what do you expect to find, considering that Fabio arrived this morning and is seeing it for the first time now, what do you expect to find from a hybrid motorcycle? So, from an aesthetic perspective, and definitely speaking, with both the gear lever and also absolutely clutch lever removed, it still feels like a full-fledged motorcycle. You don't get exactly the impression I was expecting, like those simplified electric scooters. Instead of this, it seems more akin to two powerful as well as interesting road bikes. I am interested in understanding, not so much for the electric use, I would like to try it even just in electric mode, it will matter and we will do it. I want to understand both this boost functionality it gives you, to maybe get out of situations, it gives you this power, but also to understand if you feel this difference, because I believe that the future will go in this direction, just like it did for cars, it will absolutely go in this direction. So I wanted to reassure all the conservatives, because obviously now I'll explain, we already made a presentation video of this motorcycle, and it caused an uproar among traditional motorcyclists, let's say, who don't want to touch the gear, the clutch, the motorcycle, as it remains the last bastion of the pleasure of riding. So I tried it, but I'm not telling you anything, and I'm not telling you anything Then we'll make our conclusions to understand if the motorcycle really takes away the pleasure of riding or maybe adds to it. My main comment to those who say, leave us the gear lever, is true. They could have left it, because instead of putting a joystick here, as it works, you could have had the control on the pedal. I don't think it makes you feel any less of a motorcyclist to shift with your thumb instead of your foot. That's my opinion, but everyone has their own. And anyway, guys, don't worry. Internal combustion engines on motorcycles will still be around for a long time. This is a demonstration of technology by Kawasaki, a huge company that makes airplanes, Shinkansen trains, gas tankers, and also crazy motorcycles with 200 horsepower superchargers like the Ninja H2. But, they want to show they can do this too. Then, the typical user, are they all engineers? I don't know, but we will find out. Now, let me just quickly explain how the system works, and then we'll go test it. First of all, some information that those who have already seen the other video with Stefano Cordara will surely have already received. But anyway, for Fabio, who has to ride it, it's useful. The motorcycle starts with the key normally, and with the start button as usual. It always starts in sport mode. When it starts in sport mode, the engine turns on, and then you can change the mappings by choosing eco, hybrid, or electric, automatic, or manual for the transmission, and the walk mode, which helps, right? This is something Kawasaki added to address complaints about the weight. With the walk mode, you can move it in electric mode easily. Now, let's put it in first gear. There it is, simply by going backward. This motorcycle also goes into the box. Maximum 6 kilometers per hour, because obviously it can't be done. So you exit the walk mode, and that's it. So you can choose. In eco mode, when you stop at a traffic light, the motorcycle turns off, the combustion engine shuts down, it starts with the electric motor, and then the combustion engine kicks in like a normal hybrid car. In sport mode, the internal combustion engine is always on, and the electric motor gives it an extra boost, but you can only shift with the buttons. That is, in sport mode, automatic shifting is not available because it is specifically for sport. When you are in eco mode, you can decide whether to use the automatic transmission or the manual transmission. I emphasize, as I said earlier in the video, that it is a real transmission, not a variator like a scooter. It is a real motorcycle transmission with 6 gears. In fact, when you use it in electric mode, you will notice that it shifts gears even in electric mode because the electric motor is mounted at the transmission. So the system shifts gears even with the electric motor. All with a finger. You do everything with your finger except when you're in automatic mode. There's no clutch, so you start by accelerating like you would with a scooter. The convenience in the city is definitely that. And then there's the magic button, the E-boost, which gives you all the torque of the electric motor combined with all the torque of the combustion engine for 5 seconds. So you have a nice boost if you need to get out of an overtake or exit a corner with some acceleration E-boost. Then in the end, it might even become a pretty fun game. Reach 88 miles and end up in the future. Exactly like Doc. Questions? No, I'm curious to understand a little bit more about the maneuverability of the gear shift like this because it strongly goes against the habit. But I'm also interested in a few more details. That's the problem, against habit. But habits can change. Yes, exactly. You need to step out of that zone a bit. I'm curious to see, I'm a tester, so I try everything. I get used to things quickly, to new stuff. I've always liked it. On the other hand, let's say the average user, like Fabio, might encounter some difficulties, or maybe not. Now I'm curious, for what we've done this kind of test, to understand what someone who gets on this motorcycle for the first time notices. I would say let's go try it out and then have a chat at the end of our ride. Gladly. So Fabio, the day is almost over. Well, we're still out and about, but we need to head home. with the two Kawasaki hybrids, and we've already had a chat during lunch break. We've already exchanged some opinions, but I wanted to understand from you what you expected. Did you find it? Did you not find it? Did you find something more, something less, or exactly what you expected? I'll start with the conclusion because for me, it's a yes. My vote is yes. I approve both because I was expecting a kind of motorcycle, but instead it's a motorcycle in every sense. It is a motorcycle because you can feel the internal combustion engine, you feel the vibration, you feel the power, so you don't get the impression you're riding something, not a motorcycle. No, it is a motorcycle. When you go in eco mode, you feel the electric at the start because you start in electric silence, and within 10 meters, the combustion engine kicks in. For the rest, the electric supports you, but you don't notice it. You notice it when you press the booster, which I thought was one of those gimmicks to talk about. But actually, on the highway, when you have to overtake without having to open up, with the boost, you cover those 100 meters where you feel this power kicking in, like a video game, because even the graphics look like a video game, but it's not a game. Today, I used it many times in third, fourth, fifth gear, but even in higher gears, you can feel it. So I think this boost is really convenient. Moreover, you used almost all the features of the Ninja 7 Hybrid because indeed, in a couple of situations, actually while filming, we had to make a U-turn and you found yourself in a critical spot for reversing. Yes, I had to make a U-turn. There was a small ditch to avoid taking risks because moving the heavy motorcycles downhill is difficult. I put it in walk mode and basically, essentially reverse the throttle in the opposite direction. It went approximately about 3 to 4 meters. Even what could have been just a feature to talk about, I used it that I found useful. I used it twice today because when you have a street bike, the steering on roads like these is obviously a bit limited, so it was useful. It's a bit like the remote control, right? None of us, we are all capable of getting up and changing the channel, but you have it, don't you? I mean, you use it like, I'm saying this thing here, like you don't always have to use reverse, but there are situations where instead of pushing or pulling the bike back, you put it in reverse and it's convenient. Speaking of weight, since it's a hot topic, did you feel the motorcycle was too heavy while riding it? No, to be honest, not at all. No, for me it rides naturally. I found the Z more manageable than the Ninja, maybe because it's a bit smaller, maybe because the position is a little more upright. The seat is a bit harsh, but I'm used to enduro, so I'm accustomed to sitting on a comfortable chair. However, I must say that the most shocking thing is the gearbox, the gear shift, because anyway, how long did it take you to, I mean, you had never ridden a motorcycle like this, but I had ridden it very little. How long did it take you to get used to shifting with your thumb instead of your foot? I would say 3 circles. You make 3 circles in the air with your hand, then you get into the mindset where you go up with your index finger and down with your thumb. And I'm going to say something maybe a bit strong. I think we will end up having all motorcycles like this because the practicality of such an immediate shift, the fact that you can downshift 3 gears very quickly or do the same while accelerating is so practical. We are obviously used to using our foot, but that's because there is no other choice, right? That is, we struggled more because rationally, it is more tiring to pull the clutch, use the pedal, up, down, and find neutral at the traffic light. The motorcycle stays still in first gear. Now, this might seem strange because a pure biker puts it in neutral, but it's really convenient to be at the traffic light and not have to pull the clutch. I mean, it's convenient because it's something that happens so often. We're talking about convenience, but do you feel less like a motorcyclist? No, look, while I was riding it, I was thinking about when I switched from a manual to an automatic transmission in my car, thinking that as a motorcyclist, I was losing out. But now I use the automatic transmission, and it seems really outdated to use the manual. I still downshift with the levers when I need to in a curve, and you can do the same here. You can switch from eco to manual, but in sport mode, it's only manual. This could be something to consider, whether to include an automatic option. I agree with you that today I had already taken a short ride, but I practically tested it with you. I agree with you that in eco mode, I understand the eco mode, which is designed to quickly shift through many gears at low revs to save fuel, especially when using it in automatic. I would like there to be an automatic mode in sport as well, where you can push the gears a bit more, etc. But in sport mode, for now, you can only use it in manual. It's interesting, but since we had already done so much, I think it would be a matter of adding one more mapping for the servo-assisted transmission. In automatic eco mode, in traffic, like on the ring road when we started, it was perfect because you don't have to constantly brake, pull the clutch, and start again. As our young kids say, you don't have to stress. You can stay calm in traffic, on the highway, behind trucks going 80 kilometers per H. It's true. Me too, automatic, because who cares? Another thing I have to say about the automatic, but I will return to the studio to give you my final conclusions, is that in my opinion, it tends to downshift in a way, that is, it tends to stay in a high gear, rightly so, because you're in a coma even when approaching a roundabout. Many times at a speed where I would downshift a couple of gears, it stays in a high gear because it then uses the electric motor to exit, right? But there I would like to have a bit more of, well, they are really, how to say, rough edges to smooth out, that's it. In the hairpin turns, I always used sport mode in manual, but I used automatic in those situations where you don't need comfort or practicality exactly. However, I have to say that in the end, even if it seems less pure to admit it, the comfort, like when I tried a motorcycle with cruise control, which I thought was useless, but after 50 kilometers on the highway, pressing that button, I have to say that these are comforts that in the end are daily. I don't know how to explain it. It's not, yes, these are things that become part of your normal use, and when you don't have them, you miss them. I have to say, between the two, I prefer the Z. It's easier, more agile. It's true, I agree with you, Stella. They have positioned them in a somewhat sporty way, rightly so, because they want to give a sporty touch to this type of technology. I have the feeling I go faster with the Ninja, even though they have the same engine. Then you told me there's no difference, so maybe it was just the position. Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Braking, they brake well, just like a completely normal motorcycle. Then, Kawasaki has always made excellent products when it comes to suspensions and brakes, so in this case too, I have to say we are aligned. What more could you want? But then, a detail, the gear is always in neutral even when the motorcycle is off. So if I had to park on a slope, I would need to find a way to ensure that there is no handbrake. There is no handbrake. Exactly, like on other motorcycles that have this type of robotic transmissions, etc., etc. On the mobile, there's the little Saint. Here you need to be careful, as when you park it, it doesn't have the gear to hold it. Anything else? For the rest, I think it's just a matter of getting used to it. Yes, let's say that to wrap up with Fabio, you need to have an open mind to approach this kind of innovation. If you come with those preconceptions, those prejudices, you won't get anywhere. Having the courage to say, but if they actually showed it, what did they do? Try what this product is and then judge it, obviously, right? Definitely. If I think about Formula One, which is already hybrid, it's still an evolution they are making, but maybe it's talked about less. We really got used to using the pedal shift because it was the only possible technology, but it's like turning off the computer by pressing start. We got used to it. We got used to a gesture that not gates. Now, at this moment, we are not used to. It's an intuitive gesture. In my opinion, if this were to start today in the world of motorcycling, it would be more convenient. Then the new generations come along, so we who are from the older generation are used to doing certain things, but we were used to making calls with a rotary phone, and things have changed a bit. While future generations who approach motorcycles from now on will find this type of technology normal, it won't be the only option because the purest manual transmission will still be available. Even Porsche had the PDK, but then reintroduced the manual transmission for those who wanted it. A 7-speed manual transmission, but then you drive the one with the PDK and say, the manual is nice, but the other one is more convenient. It's a matter of choice. We shouldn't oppose progress, in my opinion. I agree, and I repeat, it is a manual transmission in every respect. You can go automatic, but mentally you do the same work as you do on the motorcycle. You just shift more quickly. Lastly, because I forgot, running on electric only, yes, we tried it in a city center. I have to say it's impressive because the motorcycle is completely silent. It feels like my little scooter. It doesn't go more than 60 or 65 kilometers per hour. It seems like a use case for very specific situations. I can't think of where it could be used unless we are visiting a church or some particular places. But I have to say it's something that exists. However, it was nice to enter the village where there was silence. Well, some people stopped to ask us why they weren't making any noise indeed. Yes, this is definitely a topic. Well, the kilometers are limited, they are 11, but the curious thing is that it changes gears even when you're in electric mode, so it's said that the electric is mounted as a single. I would say that now with Fabio, we wrap up the tour, return to the studio, and then you'll see me again for the conclusions of this video. Thank you. Shall we continue?
Let's continue.
We returned to Red. I must say it was a beautiful day. Interesting because even if you're not a rider, you can try out motorcycles, check out their features, ask questions, and get immediate answers. It's great to have a new motorcycle, so I must say Kawasaki was smart to offer this opportunity because I really thought it was an experiment, almost a prototype. But instead, I found a very interesting motorcycle. I think it's the beginning of a different era of using the gearbox. The fact that it's hybrid is almost a detail, in the sense that you don't notice it while you're riding. In short, an interesting way to have a well-organized, quick experience. He took me on a nice ride. We went to the Fabio area and saw some interesting places. The weather was definitely on our side, so kudos to Red for greatly organizing it. Here we are at Red Lab. We have returned and let Fabio go for his work commitments. It was a very interesting day because when I bring one of you to test the motorcycles, some insights always come out. Sometimes I share them, maybe sometimes even more data than what a professional tester like me could find. The hybrid topic is obviously a super divisive subject on social media. Even now, under the posts we've made, the controversies continue with people who don't even want to see them. However, there are many people interested. First of all, I want to thank all of you who wrote and sent your vertical videos to the email experience at redlife.it to be candidates. Unfortunately, only one could be chosen, but keep following us and subscribe to our social channels because there will be more of these Red to Ride events, even with other motorcycle models. We chose Fabio because we thought he was the ideal profile. He owns a combustion motorcycle and an electric scooter, so he already has an open mind to understand this innovation and was curious to see what happens when combining these two technologies. I have to say that most of the people who wrote to us are either engineers or already own a hybrid car. In short, it's clear that such a motorcycle attracts those who are familiar with this technology and might scare away those who are not. Like all things we don't know, we are a bit, afraid of them. Maybe we need to have an open mind. First of all, I have to say well done to Kawasaki for having the courage to break the ice and make it. The point is, guys, that now this motorcycle exists. It works well just like a normal motorcycle, and this will force many other manufacturers to look into it, take it apart, and try to do better. This is what advances our technology on motorcycles. So beyond the philosophical discussions about what is needed and what is not, having done it is a great technological challenge that I believe Kawasaki has won. Let's go to the soda. So I'll tell you a bit about what I found while trying both Z models. Well, first of all, at the end of the test day, I took home the experience of having ridden some motorcycles with the sensations of a motorcycle, with a motorcycle gearbox that we used with our hand instead of our foot. But honestly, it made very little difference. So this is kind of the starting point. We are not riding a strange object that does strange things. We are riding a motorcycle that brakes like a motorcycle, shifts like a motorcycle, and behaves exactly, dynamically, like a motorcycle. Any comments? I get on the Ninja first, which has slightly more loaded handlebars and is a bit heavier compared to the Z. The gear shift button, let's say the upshift button, in my opinion, is a bit out of reach. I would like to find it a bit more within reach. Instead, I always have to look for it a little. Sometimes by mistake, I would turn on the high beams. I believe Kawasaki did it this way to avoid it being touched inadvertently while riding, so you really have to go looking for it. I would like to point out upshifting and downshifting occur only under specific conditions. Upshifting happens only when the throttle is open, and downshifting only when the throttle is closed. Therefore, it is not possible to downshift with the throttle open. I also believe that Kawasaki did this to avoid, while I'm accelerating, accidentally touching something with my finger and making completely unintended maneuvers. A limitation of this system, or rather it's not a limitation, the system is like all systems equipped with a clutch. Even if you leave the motorcycle parked in first gear, the engine is not locked. It would be appropriate, as Honda does with the DCT transmission and as MV does with the MV Agusta Turismo Veloce SCS, to use a system that locks the rear brake when you park, especially with all motorcycles that have a recluse clutch. If you're on a slight incline, the motorcycle won't stay put, and this is something I need to point out. Regarding the various operating modes, I must say that in sport mode there are no issues. You can shift with your finger, and it only works in manual mode, so there is no automatic sport mode. The motorcycle behaves exactly like a normal motorcycle, except that instead of using your foot, you use your index finger and thumb. You can always feel the electric motor assisting the 451 twin-cylinder engine, but there is never any abnormal operation. I must say that the integration of the two engines that make up the power unit of the two Kawasaki hybrids is really excellent, so from this point of view, they have done a great job. Switching to eco mode, you can still use the buttons, but honestly, when you're in traffic, I prefer to use the automatic function because it helps me stay a bit more relaxed. I must say that it is truly an eco mapping, meaning the gears shift quickly one after the other. when you reach sixth gear, the motorcycle tends to hold sixth gear and downshifts little when approaching roundabouts. In such cases, I would prefer the algorithm to downshift a bit earlier, so I intervene and downshift using the button. However, when you manually use the buttons in automatic mode, the motorcycle switches to manual mode, and to return to automatic mode, you have to press the button again. In this case, an auto return function like the one on the Honda DCT would have been nice. And I also wouldn't have minded having a sport mode for the automatic transmission to rev the gears higher and have more fun with the sport mode. I think that's simply a mapping to add, it's not a problem. The gearbox is not a dual clutch gearbox, it's a traditional servo-assisted gearbox, so it's robotized. In the lower gears, you can feel a bit of the clutch disengagement. I would like to have a quick shifter in this case, so that when you press the button to shift up, it would be a bit faster. However, this small step, this little jump, is noticeable between first and second gear, especially between second and third, but as the gears go up, it becomes progressively faster. The walk mode seems like one of those features that are added just for fun, but we actually found ourselves in situations where objectively engaging the walk mode and putting it in reverse to help you pull the bike out of a downhill parking spot or making a U-turn was really helpful. I can imagine such a feature on a touring bike when you're loaded with luggage, and it can really give you a hand. In fully electric mode, the bike is super urban with a top speed of around 60 kilometers per h to 65 kilometers per h. You can't expect high performance, but the acceleration is there. The curious thing is that since the engine is mounted upstream of the gearbox, the bike shifts gears even when you're using the electric motor. It's not exactly like using a scooter. You can actually feel the gears engaging. And finally, e-boost, well, it's a great feature. It ends up being more useful than you might think. When you need to overtake and don't feel like downshifting, that little button, if you're in sport mode, because e-boost only works in sport mode, gives you a nice acceleration boost, even coming out of curves. It's a fun feature that doesn't lose its appeal after the third use. You end up using it quite a bit. As for the Z in terms of comfort, I have to say between the two, I prefer the Z for various reasons. The seat is quite firm in terms of padding, and it is very extremely rigid. The triangulation is more, let's say, relaxed on the Z compared to the Ninja, which has less load on the front end, offers a slightly more naked bike riding experience, so it's a bit more natural, and has more agility because there's more leverage. It's a motorcycle where you feel a bit less that there's a battery here, which doesn't really make itself felt much. Only when you make very quick direction changes, you notice that there's more weight here underneath, back here, than in a normal motorcycle. Like it has a bit of a heavy rear end, let's put it that way. Nothing really significant because the motorcycles handle very well. Kawasaki has provided a lot of support to the shock absorber to handle this extra weight, and the seat is nice and solid. Less on the Ninja, but mainly because you're sitting in a different position here. You're a bit more upright, so you feel it more on the Zeta. If I have to tell you which one I prefer between the two, I have to say that, in my opinion, my preference definitely goes to the Naked for various reasons. Although the Ninja offers slightly better protection, the Naked, without a doubt, with this flyer, travels well without any problems. Kawasaki style brakes, so no problem there. Nice pressure point, both front and rear. There's the power you need. The bikes handle well. And I have to say that when you want to ride in a sporty way for fun, the bikes support you and follow your lead without any issues. There's a lot of, how should I say, pragmatism, as always with Kawasaki, right? Radial calipers, traditional fork, but everything works well in the end. Staying on the topic of comfort, besides the seat, I mentioned the vibrations, practically absent on the handlebars, very little on the seat, a bit on the foot pegs of both motorcycles at high revs, but nothing significant, although you can feel them a bit on the foot pegs. The heat management is very good. The side part gets a little warm, but during the test, it was really hot, almost 30 degrees, and there are motorcycles that make you suffer much more in comparison. So, in terms of thermal comfort, I'd say it's fine. The adaptation time to the new system is about 3 minutes. You just need to start the motorcycle, wait for the display, even when you're in eco mode, and then accelerate slightly, a bit. No problem at all. Switching from the pedal to the handlebar control doesn't require any sacrifice. What Fabio said in the comment is true. For the first 3 roundabouts, you look for the clutch, but by the 4th, you've already forgotten about it. Then it becomes your new normal. I would add that the eco mapping kicks in when you stop at a traffic light, turning off the engine. When you accelerate, it starts in electric mode and then switches to the combustion engine as usual. During our day, the consumption was almost 29 kilometers per litre. Probably fuel consumption is not the killer application of this motorcycle because there are other bikes that are just as efficient. The fact that all this technology is present is a demonstration of Kawasaki's technological prowess. As I said, the motorcycle is here, it exists, it works, it is sellable. Someone else will take it, imagine what can be improved, and this will lead to new developments. Whether these developments are accepted by the market or not, the market itself will decide. I would say that we wrap up the topic of Kawasaki hybrids here. Or maybe not, because I'm sure there will be a lot to say in the comments below. Write to me here if you want to know something. I am at your disposal. I was happy to go for a ride with Fabio, who is one of you. Follow us because soon we will bring some of you to do more tests with motorcycles, maybe even more traditional ones. We'll close it here and we'll see you in the next video.